In this video, I'm going to show you how to edit a single scene using two different camera angles. I'm going to start out by opening my imported folder. And if this looks a little different, you might want to look at the tutorial that I did on project folders for imported media. And I put a link in the post. So under this project, I've got two clips. I've got an A-roll clip and a B-roll clip. My A-roll clip is a wide-angle shot that I took using my iPad mounted on a tripod. And you can see it in the background there. It's on a desktop suspension boom. And here's the view from that iPhone camera. And that's my B-roll for close-ups. So I'm going to start out by putting this on the main track. And the first thing I want to show you is how to sync up these two clips. Now, eventually here I'm going to take this clip and drag it down here on top. But the first thing I want to do with this A-roll clip is I want to trim this right at the point where I'm clapping. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in until my playhead becomes a single frame here, and then I'm going to put that spike from clapping my hands right in the center, and I'm going to cut there, and then I'll take and delete the first part of this. All right, now I'm going to take that B-roll clip and bring it down, and I'm going to find that same spike, and once again I'm going to zoom in on it, and I'll take that spike and put it right in the center and make sure that I have just that single B-roll clip selected so that I don't cut both the A-roll and the B-roll. And then I'll cut and I'll delete the first part of this B-roll. Now I'll take and move this to the beginning, because both of these clips are trimmed right at that point where that audio spike is. So if we play this, you should hear a single clap. Now, if they were a little bit out of sync, you would have heard an echo or a slight delay in the two. So we've got them synced up now. Okay, now we're going to trim this B-roll. And just the B-roll, we're going to leave the A-roll completely intact. But in order to do that, the easiest way for me to know where I want the trim points to be on the B-roll is to hide the B-roll. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but you'll see what I mean. But as you know, in LumaFusion, you can't hide individual tracks, so here's a little workaround. I'll go into Edit on the B-roll and go down to Blending and change the opacity to 0. Now, as you can see, I'm looking right through that B-roll because it's transparent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick sort of some good points where it makes sense to switch back and forth from the iPad camera, which is my wide shot, and my close-up shots with my iPhone. So remember, the wide shots are on the bottom, called the A-roll, and the close-up shots are on the top, called the B-roll. So if I go in here, this first part makes sense. We want an establishing shot. And at this point here, I'm getting ready to hold this over the top of the vise. So this is probably a good time to make that cut. So I'm going to cut there. And then I can take out this little B-roll section there. And when the B-roll becomes visible, and we'll do that at the very end, you can see as I scrub through here, I'm going to have this wide angle, and then I'm going to be going into a close-up. So we're going to be alternating back and forth between the A-roll and the B-roll being visible. So let's scrub along here a little more and see if we can find a point where we want to go back to a wide shot. Now right there, I'm looking at the camera. So that may be a good spot. Let's switch right there. I'll cut there. And then now what I'm looking at is what's going to be my wide shot as I'm looking into the camera. And now I'm picking up the saw and putting it in the vise. This may be another good point now to go back to a close-up, because when I take this clip out, you can see I'm going to be wide angle here, and then I'm going to this close-up. So let's find another natural spot here where it makes sense to go back to the wide shot. So I think I want to switch back just sort of in the middle of me tightening this. So I think I'll switch right there. So I'm going to put a clip there. All right. So now this is going to be the wide shot that I'm scrubbing through right now. And once again, it looks like I'm pointed at something there that we need a close-up for, so I'll put a clip point there. And once again, we're going to remove that section out of there. So you see how we're alternating here from wide shot to close-up, wide shot to close-up, wide shot, and now we're back to a close-up. So we'll figure out here where we want this close-up to end. And see, I'm looking at the camera again, so that may be a good time to go back to the wide shot. So we'll cut there. And now I'm scrubbing through what's going to be the wide shot. And now I'm going back, and this is a good point here to get another close-up, so we'll cut there. And once again, we'll take this B-roll out, because once again, we're alternating between wide, close-up, wide, close-up. So we're really there now, we're completed. So now let's go back to the beginning here. Now we have to make this B-roll visible again so we can see how all this worked out. So if I double tap on this clip here and open up the editor, and once again go back down to blending and change the opacity to 100%, But before I leave the editor here, one of the things I want to do is hit the clipboard here, and I'm going to say copy. And what that's doing is it's copying this attribute 100% opacity. It's copying all the attributes that you have set in here, but we're in particular concerned about the opacity. We want to set them all back to 100%. So I put that on the clipboard. And now if I go back and I select the next clip, and I'll open up the toolbox here, and under the clipboard I'll say paste. And I'll go to the next one, clipboard, paste. Go to the next one, clipboard, paste. So now all of these B-roll clips are visible. So let's kind of play through a couple of these transitions. You can see how it looks. This is a sharpener that has, I'll move to this next transition, allow you to not only sharpen the blade, but also to in the vise so that it's nice and steady. So it's on the chainsaw. So as you can see, this looks pretty good, but the problem is that the sound doesn't sound that great, because what's happening is I'm switching back and forth between the sound that was recorded on the A track and the sound recorded on the B track. So actually these here, they're both being played simultaneously. So we've got to do something with the sound because it's not right. So what we'll do is we'll go in here and we'll turn off the B-roll sound. Okay. Now we'll play through this. This is a sharpener that has built-in round blade. So you can see that the sound's better. It's not vacillating as much as it was before. But I know for a fact that the soundtrack on my B-roll was much better than on my A-roll. So in other words, the sound that I took with my iPhone was better quality than my A-phone. My A-roll on my iPad. So let's turn back on the B-roll and turn off the A-roll. And now let's listen to the sound on the B-roll. Sharpener that has a built-in round blade, a flat blade. So you can see it sounds better. Now, the problem is, and let me turn off both of these tracks now because you'll see why we're not going to use the soundtrack on either one of these videos, at least not directly. I've got this B-roll all broken up, so it isn't going to do me much good because there's no continuity on the B-roll. But there's a way of fixing that. Before I do that, I just want to do one housekeeping thing that's kind of interesting. See how in my trimming of the B-roll, I also trimmed the A-roll, which really didn't hurt anything. It didn't hurt the continuity, but it's kind of messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the edit mode to overwrite mode. I'm going to click on this first clip, and then I'm going to drag the trim endpoints all the way to the end. Okay? Now what that did is now I've just got one continuous clip. All right? Now the next thing I'm going to do to get my audio from the B-roll if I take and highlight any one of these clips, it doesn't make any difference which one, and I go into the toolbox here and I hit detach, it detached the audio from that video clip. Now, using these trim handles down here, I can just move this all the way to this end, and I can take and move this one all the way down here. All right? So now I've got a continuous B-roll audio for my entire project. So let's see how that looks. And then just before we do that, there's one other cleanup item. I still got the clap in here. So what I'll do is I'll go to a point where I'm starting to talk, right there. And make sure that you've got this in in insert mode. So right now it's an overwrite mode. So we want to switch that to insert mode, because if we don't, when we cut this, we're going to end up leaving a space. And what I want to do is I want to cut this section so that I get rid, well, I can actually just drag this out of here. Okay, so now I've got a nice clean start here, and I can actually do the same thing down at the other end. I can go down here and pick a spot where I want to end this video. And let's say I want to do it right there. And I can cut that and then drag all of that out of there. Okay, so now that we've taken care of the house cleaning, let's see what this sounds like. And just in review here, what we did was we left this A-roll video completely intact. We didn't touch it at all. We took the B-roll and we trimmed it so that it inserts those close-up scenes over the top of the wide-angle scenes just to make the video more interesting. And we detached the video from the B-roll and put it down here so that we've got one continuous audio file that's going to sound good. So let's see what this sounds like. Today I'm going to show you how to sharpen a chainsaw blade using the new Stihl all-in-one sharpener. This is a sharpener that has a built-in... I'll just skip ahead on some of these so you don't have to listen to the whole thing, so you can see the transitions. In the vise so that it's nice and steady. So we'll make sure we got the vise grips about halfway in between the blades so that you're not pinching the channel. On a chainsaw, alternate the keeping this edge here parallel with the blade. Well, that's it. It's as simple as that, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope this is something that you can use in your own projects.